This is good. Spirit works in really wonderful ways in that there is everything you have said leads up to everything I want to say today. So it just goes just like this. And the first thing I really want you to know is that it is my goal that you live an extraordinary life. That life is that somewhere along the way you look back and you just say, oh my God, I can't believe I was so lucky to have lived this life in this way. My topic today is God is not a noun, which there's a flip side of that, which what God is, and whatever that is, you are that too, because you are not a noun either, right? You can't be. If God's not a noun and God is all that you are, then you cannot possibly be a noun either. An extraordinary life is a life that is possible rather than predictable. An extraordinary life is a life of unlimited potential. When I was 45 years old, hello, how are you?
Sorry.
No. So I was 45 years old when I first walked into my first Science of Mind center, the Agape Center in Los Angeles. I was, my money was okay, my job was good, I was in a technology career, I was making enough money and had enough respect for my job. My health was just okay. I was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day and carrying around a little more girth than I carry around today. My relationships were a shambles. I was married to an addict, and even though I loved him dearly and still love him dearly, my everyday living was chaotic, to say the least. And it is now, just don't do the math, okay? It is now 18 years later, and this life that I have lived for the past 18 years was not predictable from that moment in time. That there was nothing in me that believed that, by the way, that was my mother. That was my mother's life, or my father's life. You took my mother and my father, I was living their life, because that's simply how life works when we view life as a noun, like there is an isness about it. Ernest Holmes says, change your thinking, change your life. The Buddha says, all that arises, arises with your thoughts. Jesus said, be ye not conformed to the world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And quantum physics says the seen and the seer are connected. So we have to explore this nounness as a way that we see life, because we do see life that way until we step into seeing it a different way. The definition of a noun in the dictionary is that part of speech that is used to name a person, place, or thing. That is a dog. I am a teacher. I am a mother. I am an addict. I am forgetful. She is, do you understand that there is this isness? And we represent this nounness in very many ways in our lives. What are some, you can participate here, what are some ways that we talk about the isness? How does it express itself? Like, for example, I'll give you one. It's just the way I am. What's another way that we describe it? How about the apple doesn't fall far from the tree?
Yeah.
Right.
How about I'm thankful for what I've become?
Well, that is but that's a different talk. So in the isness, so when we're living from a place that conditions us, you know, the Buddha called it a conditioned mind. It's a mind that we are trained to be what we are. We see who we are. We don't see things as they really are. That the problem with seeing life as a fixed thing is that you cannot separate yourself from what you see. That is perception all the way down. I mean, all the way down. It's perception. There is no, and I'm not saying that this thing isn't sitting here, but what I am saying is that it is a crude and temporary representation of consciousness, which is just another way of saying that what we think we become, what we think the world becomes. Are you with me?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Seabiscuit for a moment. And she just went, what? Do you know Seabiscuit?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Seabiscuit the horse. Yeah, so Seabiscuit the horse. Because the story, well, first of all, it's a very metaphysical movie that I could do 7 sermons about, but I'm only going to talk about this one aspect of it, this nounness of this movie. So, for those of you who don't know, Seabiscuit was a very famous racehorse that ran very fast. But when Seabiscuit was born, he was born small, really small, and his owners declared upon him in language and in action that he would never be a great racehorse because he was simply not good enough. And he was then treated as if he weren't a great racehorse. He was used to train the bigger horses. So they would run him backwards on the track to help the real racehorses be focused. They would have him purposely slow down so the real racehorses would know how to they would be trained to run faster. You all with me? So he was treated like an unsuccessful racehorse from the moment of his birth. And the movie, if you saw the movie, you find a moment in time when Seabiscuit is an adult horse. And this horse, excuse my language, is pissed off. He is inconsolable. He is angry. He is unfit for human consumption. He won't talk, he won't eat, he won't be nice. That's us. Do you understand? That's us when it is. Every single one of us, really. Well, maybe unless you had a different mother than I had. I don't know. And my mother was awesome. My mom was a fabulous mom. But that very few people in our society or in our world today, at least in the Western world, don't look at newborn infants and say, you are a miracle, a remarkable, unlimited possibility being who can do and be anything you want to do, and I will adore you and support you from the moment of your birth until you're an adult, and I'm going to just allow you to be who you are. That's not how most of us were raised. We were raised in an environment that, in fact, the reality of you, the thing about you that's great, the thing about you that's unique, the thing about you that really why you were born, why you chose to come is probably the thing your mother said, oh, don't be so outrageously, don't be so loud. Stop dancing in the hallway, right? Don't be so airy-fairy. Don't be such a know-it-all.
Shut up.
Yeah, you guys could all, right, so that thing that was natural in you probably is the thing that got squelched. As was with Seabiscuit, right? So how Seabiscuit, the movie's amazing because how Seabiscuit arose out of the ashes is someone saw in him unlimited possibility, which was played by a trainer, played by Chris Cooper. Yeah. And Chris Cooper just said, this is a racehorse. I don't care what he's acting like. We're going to find a way to heal this horse. We're going to find a way to let this horse be who it is. That didn't really do it all either because, and they tried darling things. They brought in a dog. They tried darling things to get this horse to respond. Then they found this. Who played the jockey? Anybody remember? I'm blanking in this moment. Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, this jockey then was hired to run this horse, right? To run this horse around the track and to get this horse to run. And it really didn't work because there was so much conditioning, so many hidden beliefs, so much from the past that would not allow Seabiscuit to really let loose. So one day, divinely guided, this jockey said, I'm taking this horse off track. So they're going around and around. He says, come on, Seabiscuit, let's go. And they run off the track, and this horse comes alive. Off track. So, it's kind of what we do here. It's kind of what the science mind was for me, is that somebody looked at me and said, you are not what you think you are. You're not broken. You're not hopeless. You know, you're not, I don't care what you're doing now, I don't care what you look like now, I don't care the condition of your life now, because you are an unlimited being, that anything you think can happen. You know, be ye not conformed to the world, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So, in reality, we are not nouns, we are verbs. In reality, we are a becoming. We are something, we are in every moment of our lives, which, by the way, if you could be a becoming your entire life, that would be an extraordinary life. To not be bound by yesterday, to not be bound by your past, to not be bound by what you see, and to think that what you see is real. What you see is not real. People used to see a flat world. That was never real. Was reading What the Bleep. Do you guys know the movie What the Bleep? As a little bit of preparation for today, you know, and there's someone in that book said that you can almost go through all of history, and whatever anyone said that they thought they knew, at some moment they didn't know. They didn't know the whole story. They didn't know really what there was to know. So the definition, a verb says that part of speech that expresses action or existence. So if we were to live a possible life rather than a predictable life, which really is the invitation is to, a little bit what, for those of you who were there yesterday, what Dr. Barbara did for Reverend Barbara is to take that eagle feather and whoosh, cut the past, like the past doesn't exist. You know, if somebody had said to me at 44 years old, or 44 and a half, that, you know, 18 years from now you're going to live a life you love, live a life in which you are mattering to people, live a life in which you matter to yourself, you know, I had the most extraordinary experience this weekend. Spirit is truly awesome in that you guys hosted me at the Comfort Inn, and then later it was switched to the Dillsboro Inn. Right, Dillsboro with the S. And I walk in, and the owner of the Dillsboro Inn, I was leaving, we had never met yet, but I'm driving out, and he goes, "Can you stop and get out of your car?" And I said, "Yes." And he takes me to the riverside, and he has a 10-year-old animal companion that is making its transition, and he's trying to decide whether to euthanize his dog.
Wow.
Now, even though I would have rather that didn't happen, because it kind of evoked in me some emotions that are a little bit close to the surface still. But the truth is that I got to matter for him. That there's something possible happened there that the old me wouldn't have ever seen it. I would have never been available to it. I would have never been somebody would say, "Would you please come pray with me?" That just would have never happened. So what if, let me go back. So we have 5 senses, and our 5 senses made you cry. My mom used to say, "Make them laugh or make them cry, just make them do something." I used to love that about her.
I think we must have had the same mother.
Really, yeah, she was a closet metaphysician who nobody ever saw that in her. Nobody ever saw that in her and called it forth. You know what I mean? So she was just kind of stuck in who she thought she was. But so we have 5 senses, right? And our 5 senses allow us to look into the world and describe what we see. That living as a noun is a descriptive activity. I see that chair, it's purple. I see the world, it's flat. I see you, I know your story, right? So, but our senses are wrong most of the time. Let me rephrase that. They're not really wrong. It's a limited way of viewing the world. And it denies your role in the world that you're viewing. Because the world is not out there. The world is in here. You also have some spiritual senses. You have intuition and imagination and intention. And when you activate those, truly anything is possible. There is a quote from Joe Dispenza, and he says, "Every single cell in your body is spying on your thoughts." I would add to that and say every cell in the universe is spying on your thoughts, because when you have a possible thought and you bring to it imagination and intention, the science of mind, philosophy, faith, and way of life would tell you that the universe is going to clothe that thought in form and deliver it to your front door. And then you will see it. Now, one of my teachers, a man by the name of Werner Erhard, said, possibility is not real at its origin. It is something that we create as real and then stand for as a reality. Meaning, say it again, let's break it down. So possibility is not real at its origin. So if you are viewing a physical world, excuse me, if you don't have any money in your checkbook, or you have a diagnosis, or you want to quit smoking, whatever it is, the possibility of having money in your checkbook, the possibility of being cancer-free, the possibility of being a non-smoker for life isn't real, right? We speak affirmations here for things that aren't real yet, don't we?
Yes.
We do. And sometimes people come into my center, which sends you love, by the way. They're meeting exactly at the same time we are, sister centers. Some people, when they first come and you do affirmations, they just say, oh, it's baloney. It's baloney. Go look at my checkbook. I have no money in my checkbook. And I say to them, nor will you ever. Right? Nor will you ever. Because if you can't envision money in your checkbook, you can't have it. Right? And even if you by luck get it, it'll disappear really fast. So being a verb recognizes that life is a possibility. Being a verb recognizes that you can change on a dime. Being a verb recognizes that you can have anything you want, you can do anything you want, and you can be anything you want. It's true. And it's not even that hard. You just have to stand for it as a reality. She You have to deny the, I remember telling my mother I was going to be a minister before she made her transition. She just laughed, and not laugh like she's mean, but laugh like she knew there was a spiritual bone in my body, right? No, clearly she wasn't right? But then I couldn't, it would be very easy in the face of that kind of skepticism, or there's this brilliant thing in Alcoholics Anonymous or any 12-step program where you get sober and you can't go back to the bars, right? And you can't go back to the bars because it will fly in the face of your reserve to be sober, right? So you can't go back to negative thinking. If you need money in your checkbook, you can't go back because it will fly in the face. You can't dwell on nothing in your checkbook. You have to go have tea at a Four Seasons hotel, right? Or something that makes you feel abundant, that makes you stand for the reality that you do not have to live in poverty, or that you don't have to live lonely, or you don't have to live whatever it is. J.Z. Knight from What the Bleep also says, a sign of boredom is a sign to change. Right? So a sign of boredom is a sign that you've outgrown your container. You're like a chick and an egg. In order for it to have a greater life, a bigger life, you've got to break out of the egg. There's a wonderful scene in I Bought a Zoo, We Bought a Zoo. There was a movie, I Bought a Zoo. Well, there's this great scene in there where, I love doing metaphysical meanings in movies. There's this great scene with this guy, Adam, I can't remember who it is, but anyway, he bought the zoo. He doesn't know, he's never owned a zoo. He doesn't really like animals. He's way out of his league. And there's bear running around, and he realized that the cage the bear is in is too small, and that what needs to happen is they need to enlarge the container for the bear to live in. That's what you and I need to do. We need to enlarge our containers, because the past, the past and the stories we've told ourselves, the way we've lived our lives, quantum physics says, excuse me just a second. Quantum physics says that every thought you think, your cells are listening. Every cell in your body is spying on your thoughts, because when you think, your brain emits chemicals, and those chemicals are either washing your cells with good, healing, uplifting energy, or washing your cells with toxicity. And so in Science of Mind, we have to stand guard at the door of our mind, because nobody can make you think anything, right? That you are the only one who can unthink, not think, rethink, and renew your own minds. So I think I just want to end here. I just want to end by wishing you a life of unlimited possibilities and being extraordinary. And for me, my mission as a minister is to make these teachings practical, because they don't do any good if they're in your head. It doesn't do any good to know that God is real if you're not happy or thriving or making a difference, or if you're not able to lose 5 pounds, right? Do you understand? That how can we create a world that works for everyone if we believe that the world is fixed and has an isness in which there is no possibility of change? And we don't know that we're thinking that, by the way, right? It's something you really have to grapple with for yourself, because it's so in the race consciousness, it's so embedded as an idea that until you think a new idea, it will be active for you. And so in some ways, this path of possibility is not very comfortable. It can be lonely for a minute, because you cannot no longer congregate around the water cooler with your friends who are talking about how bad it is. Because when you stand around talking about how bad it is, guess how it stays? Bad. And whether it's, and by the way, bad's not a reality, because I don't have it. I don't think it's bad. So if you think it's bad and I don't think it's bad, I'd rather think like me than think like that, right? So it really is who you are is going to create what's real for you. I remember I just came back from South Africa, and there was nothing but good there. I just fell in love with the South African people. I fell in love with the scenery and the air and the smells. I fell in love with obviously, who doesn't love an elephant? Fell in love with the elephants and the lions and the baboons. And I remember coming back and talking to a couple of people who were not in my community. And they just said, oh, I know, didn't the poverty just break your heart? And it's like, I never even saw any. That was nowhere did poverty in South Africa taint my experience of South Africa. Now, as religious scientists, we don't have our heads in the sand. That doesn't mean that poverty doesn't exist there. But as Edwin Gaines says, you cannot make a poor person rich by being poor. You can't make a sick person healthy by being sick, right? So, and by the way, poor people aren't really that sad anyway. My youngest sister her daughter is a anthropologist and spent 2 or 3 years in the Marshall Islands, in which, from our vantage point, is very poor. Very poor from our vantage point. And my youngest sister went and spent 2 weeks with her daughter, and she came back and she said, it's just baloney that these people are happy, that they are healthy, that they are loving, that they're in community. It's like we could all use some of that and far less TVs. Yes?
Yes.
Though he is hosting, what's his name, the happy guy?
Farrell Williams.
He is hosting the, yeah. So, last thought, which is, the first thing that we learn in Science of Mind is we dispel this idea of an old God. Our old God gets dispelled. A punishing, judgmental, angry, fear-based God, yes? Hopefully you've all done that. Have you all done that? So that we realize that even though God still is this kind of this ineffable, amazing thing that we keep exploring for ourselves and we keep seeking within to find it, we get rid of that piece of it. God did not, whatever God is, God did not create the universe and then say, let me see what you can do with it, right? It didn't happen that way. So we're not here being judged for not doing it right. We are not original, we are not born in original sin, we're born original blessings. But that God also is a verb. That if you can expand for just a moment and imagine this entire universe, every form of life, all the way from amoeba to us, that as we evolve, God evolves. That how God evolves is as us. So God is a verb and we're a verb. And this amazing image and likeness that we were created in is the reason why we can create an extraordinary life. That we are not bound by the past. That in God there is no precedent. Yes?
Yes.
So, yes.
Yes.
So let's pray. Yes, let's pray.
Yes.
Let's just know the truth. We pray not to a reluctant deity. We do not pray to ask God to give us something we don't already have or to do something we can't do for ourselves. That we simply speak an affirmative word of prayer to align our thoughts with the thoughts of God. To know the truth about ourselves, to know the truth that we live in an infinite, intelligent, loving universe that is for us and not against us. That we have a right and a reason to be here. God did not create us, God became us and all of life so that we may live extraordinary lives, so that we may live in love and joy and peace, that we may work in consciously connected communities within a consciousness of whenever two or more are gathered, that we are already brothers and sisters of the Spirit, that love is a truth between our souls and all souls. And so I just affirm for each one here that we dispel any final remnants of being stuck or victimized or limited in any way. That I affirm for each one of us that we are able to allow to activate our spiritual senses, this faculty of imagination, this faculty of intention and will, and to simply know that as we do this and we stay true to that dream and that vision, that it cannot help but be clothed in flesh. It cannot help but be by the power of our thoughts, be delivered to our doorstep. And so I know that this is absolutely the truth of life. I know that extraordinary is the new normal. And so I just hold and know and affirm and am grateful for the truth of this fact in all of our lives, to know that life as we knew it before this moment is now different. And that 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 3 months from now, we look back and we just are overflowing with gratitude for the extraordinary nature of our connections, for the extraordinary nature of our accomplishments, and for the extraordinary nature of our happiness. And so I just release this word that I am speaking, knowing that I deposit it into a willing universe, to know that we can leave this time expecting and accepting its fulfillment, period, end of story. We are grateful, we let this be, and we affirm this for ourselves and each other by saying, and so it is.
All right.
Amen. Thank you so much.